What is up, everybody? Welcome to the All-NBA show presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Get started with a $150 bonus bet when you win your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I am Tim Cato, live from the DLS studios where I cover the Mavericks. I'm not Adam Mares, just filling in this week. He'll be back next week, don't worry. But of course, do not fear. We've got Tim Legler, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Las Vegas last weekend for the first time in person. Let me ask you this, Tim. Is this too many Tims?
No, there's not too many Tims. In fact, we have you ever seen more Tims covering the NBA than we have at ESPN? We got a lot of Tims.
Tim Bond, a lot of them are based in Dallas, too.
Yeah, Tim McMahon, Tim Legler. I've always said we should do they actually have Tims in other sports, too. Tim Hasselbeck, Tim Kirkchin. We could do just an entire panel of Tims at ESPN if we wanted to. I think one day they should definitely do that.
You need to pitch them to that. As somebody, granted, with a Tim agenda, I would be a diehard day one listener. That would be very, very easy for me. But yeah, we've got a lot on the show. We're going to talk about Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal. Just want to say that I love the show. Honor to hop on with you guys. Definitely listen all the time. I'm glad that you are not in a hotel hallway today. We've got a cleaner recording setup.
As am I, man. Although I was able to, as they were passing by, taking room service to people's rooms, I was able to steal some sausage. I took a bagel off a cart rolling by. So I kind of fed myself from the room service carts, unbeknownst to the people that were expecting a full meal.
Sometimes on the road, you just got to do what you have to do. So, that could also describe the Milwaukee Bucks, who did what they had to do when they shockingly stretch and waived Damian Lillard. But yesterday, we got some very, very fun news that I want to hear your basketball takes, but I'm having a hard time not just reacting first emotionally to Damian Lillard re-signing with the Portland Trailblazers on a 3-year deal. It appears to be the full mid-level exception. He's not going to play next season. He is rehabbing, of course, from that Achilles injury he suffered in the playoffs. He has a team option on the 3rd year, a player option. He also has a no-trade clause. But my first reaction to the news was just, how cool is this? How neat it is to see a franchise legend, one of the greatest Blazers, if not the greatest Blazer of all time, get to go back there. What's your thoughts on the top when you saw this news, Legs?
I think two things. So at the same time, I was having thoughts simultaneously. The first is, it's kind of a shame, right? It didn't work out in Milwaukee. I mean, they didn't have the kind of success they were hoping to, and it really was about the injuries, because even a year ago, their injuries really didn't allow them to be competitive in the Indiana series, and their season ended. And it took a while for Lillard and Antetokounmpo to even find their rhythm. I'm not sure they ever truly felt totally comfortable. It's certainly Lillard playing alongside Giannis. And I said from the beginning, I think part of that was because it was the first time in his life, probably since the first time he ever picked up a basketball, he wasn't the best player on his own team. And I think that makes it a little bit difficult for guys, right? You're trying to figure out when to be the alpha, when to defer. That's a long shadow that Giannis cast. So I think it was sort of rough sledding, and they certainly had their moments. Like, they had their nights when they both played great. Nights when Giannis was out, Lillard looked like himself back in Portland. But overall, the totality of the 2 years, it just never came close to living up to what we thought it could be. So in some ways, a little bit sad that we didn't get to see that, and unfortunate for the Bucks that it didn't work out for them. And of course, now they're eating, this contract and giving him a huge check. So that was the one part of it. Felt bad for the Bucks, truthfully, and for Lillard and Giannis that it didn't work out. But on the other side, I'm thinking to myself, there are certain players you just identify so much with one franchise, and Lillard was a Portland Trailblazer all those years. And people kept wondering, when are you going to leave? And when are you going to go chase a ring and go pair up with other guys on your level and try to win something? And he just stayed year after year, finally succumbed to it and went in there and said, hey, man, I'm going to go somewhere where I have a better chance to win. He did it. But we still identified him, I think, as a Portland Trailblazer. It was hard to really reconcile him being a Buck. He's a Blazer. So he's going back there. Now, what's going to be left of Damian Lillard? How much does he have in the tank? How good can he be after this injury at his age? That remains to be seen. But at least he will be in a Blazers uniform, a place where he is revered and adored. And I think, obviously, personally happier in Portland. That's been well documented for a lot of reasons. So he's getting a chance to go back there, and it's not too often we get to see players return to that franchise they were with for more than a decade. Usually once they leave, they're gone for good, and then maybe they bounce around to a few teams. The fact that he's going back, I think all in all is a good story for Lillard, for the Blazers, for the fan base, and he'll get to have that last moment of his career, whenever that is, in a Blazers uniform.
I really like the Blazers roster. It's shaping up in a very interesting way. I heard you guys, on the last episode talking about Hanson Yang, but they've got talent up and down the roster. Obviously, this is a year out, and I think you said it best. Before you can talk about what Portland's going to do with their roster, you have to see what type of Damian Lillard he is as a smaller guard, past 35, coming off, pretty much the most serious injury you can have in the NBA. But it does make me think, and it does make me think if, is this a make or break season for Scoot Henderson? Is Drew Holiday somebody they brought in to be the veteran leader? Certainly will be next season. Does this increase the likelihood that perhaps they do actually explore him? Potentially somebody that they move on from here in a year. What's nice about the Blazers is that, this is just a great story. It's great to have them around for the next season. And you've got a year to figure it out. You've got a long runway, a long leash, another year of development for these young guys that are promising, but they're not quite there yet.
No, that's exactly how they're going to treat it. And look, there's no way Lillard's playing next year. So you're talking about having really a year and a half to recover from this by the time he sees the court again. And you're going to see other guys in the same boat. Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, like the timing of their injuries as well. Being that late in the year, certainly unfortunate, obviously, game 7 of the finals for Tyrese Halliburton, but even for Tatum, in the Knicks series, the timing's terrible because your season is pretty much derailed at that point. In the case of the Pacers, you're one game from winning a title. So that's obviously the tragic news. The good news is, they're going to, because of the timing of it, you're not tempted really to even think about bringing those guys back. Give them that whole following offseason. So now you've got a year and a half. The same case for Lillard. They do have an interesting set of pieces there now in Portland, and they're going to get an opportunity to see. Can Scoot Henderson make the leap to an efficient player? I don't know. I loved him coming out in terms of his talent, his explosive athletic ability, particularly in the open floor. He's got to be a more efficient player. I mean, you can't consistently shoot 40% from the field. As a smaller guard, you've got to figure out a way to be more efficient. Or if you're not going to be, you certainly have to be better as a playmaker and a ball security guy. Make plays at a higher level and cut down the turnovers at the same time. It's one or the other. If you can do both, now you're an all-star. So let's see what happens with him. Drew Holiday, I don't know if they bring him in if they knew that this Lillard situation was going to happen. But regardless, you've got a year to sift through the pieces you already have. Shaedon Sharpe is an electrifying talent that will be there when Lillard eventually gets back. So good news is I think the expectation levels for this team are going to be sort of tepid next year. They had a very good second half of the year, that led to Chauncey getting an extension. And so, you look at their young pieces, I don't think they're necessarily a playoff team. They might be in the hunt for the play-in next year, sort of in that mix. 35 wins and up, you're probably going to be in the mix for that. The Blazers will be somewhere in that, 7 to 10 to 11, 12 range, somewhere in there. The following year, we're going to see what Lillard has in the tank. And by then, Sharpe will have another year under his belt to see if he could turn into and hit his ceiling, that perennial all-star caliber player. So it will be an interesting year next year in Portland as they wait for Lillard to come back.
They closed the year really well. I'm excited to watch them next season. So stretch and wave used to be something where teams would mostly use it to take a $9 million and turn it into a $3 million
Right.
cap hit over 3 years. Bradley Beal also got stretched and waived. A lot of money. He paid back a little bit to the Phoenix Suns. We've kind of anticipated this was going to happen. There's a lot of reporting on the fact that it was very likely to happen, but it did happen. And he is going to be, he's joining the Clippers, which I really like. That was the favorite destination of all the destinations when there's a lot of speculation about this. What do you make of it?
Well, look, first of all, Bradley Beal is one of those guys that, you've seen guys like this over the years. He's talented. I mean, the guy averaged 30 plus in this league, and it wasn't that long ago. So that's there. He can get his own shot. He's a high level, efficient player. But the question I think at this point is Bradley Beal a winning player? And I think it's fair to ask because he was the best player on bad teams in Washington for the most part. I mean, when he was there with Wall, like they had a little bit of success, but for the most part over the last several years before he went to Phoenix, he was an elite scorer on a bad team. I don't know how much cachet that gives you in the league. So then he goes to Phoenix. He pairs up with Booker and Kevin Durant. And I'm certainly not laying this at the feet of Devin Booker. There's a lot of reasons why that didn't go right, and that's why they're on their third coach in 3 years. So it's the totality. All of those guys have to take ownership in that. A lot of front office changes there as well. So it's been a mess. But Bradley Beal was part of that mess. So now you look at this situation, and he joins the Clippers, a team that was really intriguing a year ago. I think the best thing you can say about them is Kawhi Leonard got through the year healthy. He finished the year healthy. He finished the year playing well in the playoffs and goes into an offseason feeling good for the first time in a long time. That was the best thing to say about their season. They've got Zubac there, who's turned himself into a top shelf center. James Harden had a renaissance year as more of a playmaker than a scorer. Norman Powell had a career year, although he's not there anymore. So they were really an interesting team. A lot of defensive talent, young talent on the wings. Now you bring in an elite scorer at the NBA level. I want to see, can Bradley Beal contribute at a really high level to a winning team? A team that's actually in the mix and relevant. That's what we want to see from Bradley Beal. This is the best opportunity he's had because it's more than just names on paper like it was in Phoenix. And now can it come together? We didn't know. This team has already done things, and they showed it last year. And I just mentioned a lot of the reasons why. And they're an elite defensive team at times. So he is going into a ready-made formula to win. Now do your part. So that's where I'm at with Bradley Beal. I just want to see it. I know the talent's there, but the track record of doing it in winning situations isn't. So there has to be some skepticism.
You're asking the right questions. I think it is a perfectly fair question to ask about Bradley Beal when you look at his career. What I can tell you for sure, I can give you one definite answer. He was not a winning player making $50 million like he did last season for the Suns. There is no way to pay a player that amount of money and then have the cap flexibility around him to build a winning team. This is why I like this so much more. He is almost certainly going to come off the bench for the Clippers. He is making the taxpayers mid-level. So like very, very reasonable. Obviously, he will be taking home 50, something like 60 million next season. Yes, he's stretching away for 5 years, but teams who stretch and waive still have to pay out the contract in the original terms of the agreement. It's just a cap mechanism. So he's going to be a very wealthy man. But not because of what he's making for the Clippers. I just think this role makes so much more sense. And Norm Powell was awesome last season. Norm Powell was, he had his breakout season, the best year of his career. The question is, when you consider the salary, even if Bradley Beal is a slightly worse player, in that salary role and given what the Clippers were able to do around him, this might be, a much better option for the Clippers because they were able to go get a John Collins and still have a Norm Powell-esque player, maybe not quite as good, but a Norm Powell-esque player, and Bradley Beal grabbing him for the taxpayers mid-level, bringing him off the bench. I just really like what they did this offseason.
No, I hear you. My question is, look, one thing about Bradley Beal, he wasn't able to prove in Phoenix that he can do the same type of things he did in Washington when he's not the number one option. That's the part that we have to see, and he won't be the number one option with the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard will be. And I know Norman Powell had a great year, and Kawhi missed some time, a good amount of time, came back healthy, and finished the year strong. Norman Powell also had a level of toughness to him at the defensive end. And Norman Powell actually established himself in this league as a defender far before he became a guy that was known for getting 20 a night, which he did a year ago. So Bradley Beal has to fill that component at that spot. Are you tough enough? Are you tough enough defensively? Are you competitive enough defensively? And can you be a guy that can go be efficient getting 20 plus a night, which is what Powell did when you're not the number one option? So he's got some things to answer. But look, if you're the Clippers and you lose Powell with the year he had, a career year, this is about as well as you're going to do to replace that offensive ability in Bradley Beal. So let's see if the chemistry works, if the formula works. It was pretty quick the way this played out. I mean, there's the buyout, boom, he's with the Clippers. There was no testing the waters to see who's out there, talk to a bunch of teams, drag it out for a while. It was like buyout, sign. So this was something going on behind the scenes. They wanted him, he wanted them, and it came together. Let's see if this can bring out the best version of Bradley Beal, which might not be the 30-point version in Washington. Maybe it's the 21-point version as a Clipper where he plays a little bit harder defensively and he's on a team that wins 50 games. That's he could actually help sort of rehabilitate his reputation if he's able to do that. And it remains to be seen. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he can, because his age and the talent dictate that it should be able to happen.
100% agree. Looking forward to seeing it. Yes or no question for you, Legs. Would you say that this offseason was it was an indication that contenders around the NBA are sizing up, that they are looking for big men, that they are looking in some cases to continue or double down or have the option to play two centers next to each other, as we saw last season, specifically with both teams that won their respective conferences in the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it's wild the way this is trended, right? Think about how many years the league trended in getting smaller, right? Where the big man was like being phased out. And it's amazing how that changed from the era I played in. When you think about, we had a front line on the same team: Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and George Marasan. Like, that's the depth of bigs, because we always had two on the court at all times. And it just started trending the opposite direction, where you had one, and in a lot of cases you didn't have any on the floor. And now there is this reemergence of the big and teams wanting big. And they don't just want bigs. They want versatility with their bigs.
Not vitality, versatility.
Yeah, exactly. And vitality, right. And that's what's happening now. And teams are hunting these guys. And it's good for those guys. It's good for the position. And it's good to see, teams adding that component. And I think what they're wanting to do is not just make up their mind, we're going to play two bigs all the time. We're married to that. Look at Oklahoma City. They went out and got Hartenstein. They weren't married to that lineup. And in fact, they went away from that lineup at times, even in the finals, where they decided to start a smaller lineup, even though they had great success with the two bigs when they did play together. So it's just about that. It's giving you the options and giving their opponent different looks that they have to be responsible to try to match up with. And more teams are doing it. And you saw a lot of that going on around the league this offseason. Houston, clearly a team that did it. The Clippers also did it. Go out and get Brook Lopez. And I don't know how much the plan is to play he and Zubac together, but let's see. Or is he just going to be a backup? So it's really about that, man. Options. That's what coaches want, and they want to be able to play bigger if they want to do that. And Houston had great success with it last year, playing the two bigs with Şengün and Steven Adams. And now they went out and they got even bigger. So it'll be very interesting to see how many teams continue to trend in that direction.
So I've got some stats for you. Last week at alldls.com, I actually dug into this exact thing. The NBA's double big lineups nearly became extinct now in every possible way. They're back. The headline of the piece. You're spot on. You're 100% right. In the 2013-14 season, in the postseason, lineups considered with two centers, labeled, two centers playing in the same lineup, they got over 1,000 minutes. That was the 2013-14 season. By the 2020-21 season, so the 21 postseason, 16 minutes. It went from 1,000 to 16. And I even looked into that 16. It was Eric Spoelstra one time deciding Bam Adebayo and Dwayne Dedmon were going to play together in a series that got swept by the Bucks. So it was just like, hey, Spoelstra's just throwing something at the wall, seeing if it sticks. Last year, 905 minutes. So, absolutely, we have seen the fall and rise of these two center lineups. And I think you're right. When you actually look at how effective they were, Oklahoma City was better with just Chet Holmgren on the court. It's these double big lineups, and they went back to it in the finals against Indiana. I don't think that's what swung the series for them. It just was a viable lineup, and they can beat you that way. They can maybe beat you more, and it all depends on matchups and all that. But they can beat you more with just Chet. But now it's something that even the best teams, even other contenders, they have to scale up. They have to size up. They have to be ready to match that, even if it's not OKC's most dangerous lineup. The same goes for Cleveland, where a lot of times they are better with just one of the centers on the court, but they can also beat you with both those looks. And it is the versatility. And so as somebody here at DLLS, as someone who has covered the Mavericks for something like 13 or 14 seasons here, this is my one question for you. The Mavericks, unlike all these other teams where they have looks they can go to, where they're going to go double big sometimes, the Mavericks are really gearing up to go double bigs most of the time. Do you feel like the Mavericks are the most interesting test case of this, first off? And then, what do you think of the idea that, committing to this rather than, a versatile option, instead this seems to be an identity that they're really fostering here?
Yeah, look, I think there's one reason that they're going to be able to do it is because of the versatility of Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis, what he can morph into as a player, the floor, the area of the floor he can occupy, the ground he can cover defensively, and his ability to jump out and play smaller players. That gives them the luxury of, because he doesn't really in a lot of ways move like a big. He moves like a wing. And so it gives you the option to do it more often. So I don't know that everybody can try to replicate it if they have great success playing, one of those centers and Anthony Davis at the same time. And by the way, they're also going to have a guy with great size, playing the three, and Cooper Flagg, who's going to be out there with them a lot. You think about what that could look like defensively, man, and how difficult that could be to score in the paint against them. It'll be very intriguing to see how much they have all of those guys on the floor at the same time. So I do think technically the metrics will be, this is what two big lineups do for the Dallas Mavericks. The reality is nobody's got an Anthony Davis that can move the way he moves, that can play as a face-up 18-foot offensive player that doesn't need rim runs or post touches. He can do that, but he can also just play in that isolation area of the floor or occasionally step out and space the floor at the three-point line while one of those other guys dives to the rim. It gives them, I think, the flexibility that a lot of teams are not going to have. So let's see the success that they have with it. And let's see how much other teams actually employ those lineups. You're not going to add these guys the way they have unless you're planning on using them together sometimes. To what extent, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. The way they're going to shrink the floor, and everybody loves shrink the floor is one of the phrases in vogue right now in the NBA. The way they're going to do it on defense is just going to be it's going to be a nightmare for any opponent going up against them. I think there is a little concern of whether they shrink the floor too much, just don't have enough spacing on the other end. But it is a unique experiment. I think nobody in the NBA is trying to do what Dallas is doing next season. And for that reason, I'm very excited to watch it. I'm also very excited for our next segment, which is going to be a Tim Legler Q&A featuring just Tim Legler questions. We're going to ask you about you, but we're going to get some ads right before we do that. FanDuel is the best place to find all of your favorite player props, and now you need to make now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. Want to see if a guy is hitting that over consistently, or maybe they've been flirting with a potential triple-double. Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who's heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more on FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. You'll get started with just $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. We all know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car, at a gas station 3 states away. I've been there too. You know, sometimes it's the patio bars that get you. You show up there at 5 p.m. The sun's still out. You have a few beers with friends. The sun's gone by the time you're leaving. What did you even have those sunglasses? They're sitting on a table somewhere. It's probably darkly lit. Of course you're going to forget the sunglasses. It's dark outside. You know, like there's no way that you're going to remember them in that situation. And what I love about Shady Rays is it changes the game. Sunglasses are made for real life. They're seriously good looking. They're polarized. But Shady Rays will also send you a brand new pair if you lose or break them, even on day one. No guilt trip. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use code AC35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The Shades, rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Welcome back to the All-NBA show. Got a special Legs Q&A. Just questions about Legs and his career and his life. Nothing about the beach exploits or the what did you call it again? The 10 games that you would play with
War at the Shore.
War at the Shore. Man, what a name. What a name.
Or as all of my friends affectionately referred to it, because we use the acronym WATS, WATS. We just called it WATS. And yeah, man, it's a shame because it was epic. I still look at the picture from that original weekend all the time. 24 people in my backyard ready to get after it with yard games and house games for gold medals. It was amazing.
I am going to force my way to the DMVR offices whenever Adam Mares does Watts with you, convinces you to come out, and it's just kind of like a team, a company-wide endeavor. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be there.
Perfect. So you're invited, man. You're invited.
I appreciate that. So we've got a question from Jonathan Jangle. Has Legs ever shared his welcome to the NBA moment on the pod?
I don't think I ever have. And it's funny because a lot of guys are going to talk about that welcome to the NBA moment because they got dunked on or whatever. And I had a couple of those early too. But really for me, it was a preseason game against the Bulls. And so I was really good at starting down on the baseline and like really being able to set my guy up and come off a down screen, either shoulder, coming up into that wing area or the elbow area, or even out to the 3-point line, off a down screen, coming off, planting my inside foot, catching, turning, and letting it go all in one motion. Like I was really good off the ball that way. And my whole life, I'd been able to understand you had an innate sense kind of that you had separated from the defender, like in some way, whether I pushed him off or I faked him out with my footwork, whatever. And I knew I had separation. So now as I'm coming off the screen, I knew if that defender of the screener didn't jump out because I had separated from my guy. I knew I had time to just go ahead and get into my shot with no thought process on anybody contesting it or anything else, because I knew I didn't need much time to get it off. That had been my whole life until this preseason game against the Bulls, when I don't remember who was guarding me initially, but there was a switch and Scottie Pippen was now guarding me. And I set him up really good under the basket. And I kind of turned like I was running out one way, and I planted and I spun out of it. And I came back and to my favorite side, which was going to be turning left shoulder for like a 20-foot jumper off a down screen. And I knew I had created probably 8-10 feet of space. Like he was way behind me. And I came off like I was going to do. And as I caught the ball turning, immediately went into my shot, all of a sudden I just saw this arm come out right over top of the ball. Like it seemed like the guy was still down in the paint, and this arm extended to the point if I shot it, he was definitely going to block it. So I jumped in the air, and then here comes the hand over top of the ball. And as I'm in the air, I turned to like throw it back to the point guard, and the ball goes just sailing right out of bounds because the point guard had cut or something. It moved, and the ball goes out of bounds. It's turnover. First time in my life anything like that had happened to me. That was my welcome to the moment NBA. And what it told me was the time you have to make decisions and execute whatever game plan you have in your mind just got shrunk to this infinitesimal amount of time that you've got to make it happen. And the windows are going to close so quickly, whether that's a passing lane or getting a shot off or going and getting a rebound that looks like it's clearly going to be yours. There's going to be somebody coming in there faster and longer, athletic. So all of that kind of just absolutely became crystal clear in that moment. This is different. And so that would be my moment. It was very, very early. I think it was before I'd ever even played a regular season game in the NBA.
And we talk about rookies and young players in summer league getting sped up. Like this is why it happens, right?
Oh, no question about it. And that's why it takes time. Like you see such inefficiency out of rookie players because they're doing things faster than they've ever had to. And so you're not comfortable doing that. So then what happens is by year 2, year 3, certainly it's now such commonplace that you've adjusted to. It's only like walking into a dark room and giving it a few minutes for your eyes to adjust, right? It's the same thing, man. Just organically, it starts to feel more comfortable. And then the guys that are special by year 4, 5, that's when you understand how to be comfortable playing slow or fast. And now it can be different speeds, different paces. Those are the guys that sort of separate themselves from other people. So yeah, that is what rookies, every one of them is going through. And I even saw it, it's not the NBA, but it's the same thing. It's summer league in Vegas. I saw it there. Some of these guys that were just drafted and like how they're trying to adapt, even at that level when 95% of those guys won't play in the NBA this year, certainly. So it's not even what you're going to see in an NBA game, but you could see the adjustment to even just that bump up from college, or if they're a European player, that bump up to that level of speed and athletic ability that was on display in Vegas. You saw guys like struggling to adjust to that while I was out there.
Next question comes from QSXZX5635. That sounds like a social security number or something like that. If you could take one older player and put them in the modern era and take one player from the modern era and put them in the older area, which players would you choose?
So take a guy, an older player that's already retired, obviously, like played a different generation and moved to today, and one player from today and put them in an older era. I'd like to see LeBron James honestly play in the 90s. I mean, and not to say that he couldn't. I mean, the guy's a physical specimen, but the league I played in the 90s, people that are modern players that tried to have this argument that it's the same level of physicality. It's just insane to me that you could ever make the comparison. There is no comparison because of the legislation of the rules. It's just that simple. So to watch LeBron play through that level of physicality and see him find the most physical version of himself when really the second half of his career, most of his career, has been in an era with a lot less physicality on the perimeter, less physicality at the rim. Guys aren't getting laid out on their back the way that they were. I think he could easily adapt to it. I just would think that'd be fascinating to watch. Him ramp up his level of physicality to match what that era was. That would be fascinating to me. And I think if I had to take a guy that was, played in a previous era and watch him play today, let's go with my favorite player of all time, Larry Bird. I'd like to see what Bird could do in this era. Now, you think about it, Larry Bird was always considered a great shooter, a great clutch shooter. Go look at Larry Bird's three-point numbers, like for his career. Like in the league, they adopted the three-point line at 79 right before he got in the league. So he had it his whole career. He just didn't really utilize it that often. He really didn't.
Like 1.5 per game, right?
Your thought process of him is, man, this guy was, because he won 3 straight three-point shootouts, and like you're thinking like, man, this guy was three-point deadly, like Reggie Miller, like, and Curry, like. It wasn't like that at all with Larry Bird. So a guy that talented with that kind of work ethic, I would like to see what he could have been as a three-point shooter in an era that embraced the shot, where he was taking 6 or 8 a night. A guy with that level of skill, with that level of drive, to continue to push the boundaries as a shooter. That would be fascinating.
The older retired player I would like to see in the NBA, somebody you might know, Tim Legler, in fact. But that leads us right in to the next question from Marion of Bros 2. Who is the legs comp in today's NBA?
Who is the legs comp in today's NBA, man? I get asked this question sometimes, and I've had a hard time sort of finding those guys. Because some people would say like a guy like Duncan Robinson, right? And that's not a bad one. Duncan Robinson is more spot up threes, and he's actually pretty long, so he could do a little bit more finishing athletically than you think. I was a guy that I thrived, man, on spotting up, but also just down screen action. I was really good at coming off down screens into my shot, and there's not as much of that in today's NBA because guys are already spaced up, facing the basket all the time, and I certainly did my share of that, but I also got a lot of down screen action. There's not as much of that for guys today, so I don't know that if I have one. I'm curious. You would be better because you're observing the league. Have you ever seen anybody play and you thought, man, guy kind of reminds me of Legler when he played?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to say all of the same shooter comps, like Luke Kennard. I'm trying to think of someone who's like a little bit more mid-range. Like there's just not any, like even like Rip Hamilton's, like, that action for an elbow jumper is just not something that you really see in the NBA unless it's for a star to get set up in their spot. It's not for the pull-up, it's for the space. It's for, I like this spot and I can do 3 different things from it rather than, curling around and pulling up. So I'd have to think on it.
Perfect. I saw Sam Merrill up there. That's not a bad one. I've thought Grayson Allen at times. Grayson Allen is a guy that uses his strength a lot defensively. I did it as well. I was always really strong for my position. Had to be. I maybe wasn't going to be quite as laterally quick as some of the guys I was guarding, but in my era, you could get a forearm into people. I needed to use that to my advantage. So I was always considered myself one of the stronger guys at my position. Grayson Allen, I think, is like that as well. Really competes defensively. I did also. And actually, he's pretty good at running into transition into threes. That was also a big part of my game as well. I love to be highly conditioned and run the floor and sprint and get those early open ones. So that wouldn't be a bad one either. AJ Green, somebody put out there, that's not a bad one either.
We've got a comment from the chat from Andis Brown. Has Legs ever balled with Cal Ripken Jr. when he was with the Bullets? I read that Cal is a massive fan of ball and built a gym on his property.
He did. And here's a great story. So growing up in the D.C., Baltimore area, first 12 years of my life before we moved to Virginia, those are my teams, the early Bullets teams. Elvin Hayes, my first favorite player in basketball. Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray, my 2 favorite baseball players of all time. So now here I am. I'm playing in Washington, and here's Cal Ripken, man, sitting courtside watching games. And then he would come into the locker room after. And so now I'm literally meeting one of my idols, Cal Ripken Jr., and he's coming in the locker room, and he's like, hey, man, I got these pickup games at my house. If you ever want to come out and play. The problem with that is those games typically were taking place in the winter, right? Because Cal was busy in the summer. He was playing every night for
yes.
20 years straight. So he was kind of busy in the summer. And in the winter, I was kind of busy. And the last thing I think the Bullets would have appreciated was me rolling into practice with a sprained ankle because I stepped on Cal Ripken's foot in a pickup game at his house. So unfortunately, even though I was invited and I got an opportunity to meet Cal a little bit and spend some time with him, I never was able to make that happen.
Man, missed opportunities. It happens sometimes.
No
All
doubt.
right, we've got 2 more questions here. I'm going to speed through them. Cool
Sure.
Trainer Pat, was playoff basketball back in Tim's day as different of a game as the regular season, like people say it is today in terms of style, pace, reffing, etc.?
I don't think there was as big of a change from regular season to playoffs when I played. It was already incredibly physical, very handsy defensively. One of the things you think about, they weren't going to monitors to check reviews of fouls on hard fouls. So imagine what that tells guys on your front line. The Davis boys in Indiana, no review. Oh, okay. All right, let's see if they caught this one on tape when I drill this guy in a sternum and lay him out, try to get to the rim. And at best, you might get a technical foul, but most likely that dude was just shooting 2 free throws as he was shooting, realigning his spine with 2 cotton balls in his nose to stop the bleeding and go make your 2 free throws. So that was a regular season game. And now, yes, okay, it actually went up a notch in the postseason, which is actually what makes you marvel at Michael Jordan and what he was able to accomplish in the playoffs, because it did go up. But what we're seeing now, like the dramatic shift between regular season physicality and postseason physicality that I just watched and called, I think I called 9 playoff games or 10. It was really stark contrast, like what you were watching with all the 30-something games I called in the regular season compared to those playoff games. It was significantly different. So I think there was a much bigger gap now between the way it looks regular season, postseason, as to when I played.
And then a fun, quick one to end this pod on from Espo, our friend over at PHNX. Best and worst jersey you ever wore?
Well, I'm going to go with my best as my favorite, and going back to just the best year of my career and the best year of my life in a lot of ways to that point, 95, 96 in Washington. Growing up a fan of those teams, I mean, crying when they lost to the Supersonics in the NBA Finals back in the late 70s. That's like the first, along with the Washington Redskins, who now are the Commanders. Those are the first 2 teams I loved. And so now think about, I went to basketball camps when I was a kid, and I would do the iron-on numbers on your T-shirts back in the day, and the iron-on letters. And I was Elvin Hayes. I was wearing T-shirts that camp. My family couldn't afford to go buy me a nice jersey, so I had T-shirts, and I ironed on the numbers, and I had Hayes on the back. My name wasn't even Hayes. I was at a basketball camp, and a counselor was screaming, "Hayes, Hayes," as I'm running up and down a court trying to get my attention. I had no idea he was talking to me, because I'm like, my name's not Hayes, but that's what it said on the back of my shirt because I wanted to be Elvin Hayes. Now, fast forward how many years, I'm wearing the jersey of the team, right? And having this incredible year in 95, 96. So I'll put that one first. That's a framed jersey in my house. And then the other one would be the Mavericks. 23, I just thought their colors were cool, man. I love that blue with that green, white trim. I just thought that was a really cool jersey. I also wore a Nuggets jersey, which was the original Nuggets, what you think about with all the color. Those are great jerseys. Golden State, I wore Warriors jerseys that were really, really cool as well. But I'd probably put the 2 that are framed in my house hanging up, the only 2 were the Bullets and the Mavericks. I got one more now that I think about it. I have another framed jersey, and it's in storage somewhere because I ran out of room on my wall because it's a really big frame. I was fortunate enough. It wasn't the Olympic team, was anything like that, but there was a team that represented the United States that I tried out for and made when I was a freshman in college, comprised mostly of East Coast schools Big Five in particular, Nova, St. Joe's, Temple, LaSalle, Penn, Delaware, like some other schools along the Eastern Seaboard. I don't know how many guys, 50 guys tried out. They kept 10. We went overseas and played in a tournament for 2 weeks. We traveled to Austria and Germany and places like that. So I have a jersey that says USA with Legler on the back, number 6. That is one of my most prized possessions because of the opportunity to represent the United States, even though it wasn't the Olympics. It meant a lot to me to make a team with that on the front of my chest. So that was a big one too.
Man, this is amazing. As the kids say these days, it's fun to get a little bit of Legs lore out of this. But this has been wonderful. Just filling in. Adam Mares will be back next week on the All NBA podcast. But thank you, everybody who joined today. Thank you, Tim Legler, as always. I'm Tim Cato. We'll see you next week.
Y'all silly like the mayor.